Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 34 of this awesome, amazing Osu Let's Play series. In the last episode, I talked about ScoreV2 and how that works, how it's typically used for tournaments. And in this episode, I want to talk about where you can actually find tournaments, how to get into them, some general good to knows about how the rule sets are typically structured so that you can be well equipped with all the information you need to get into your first tournaments. For the most part in this episode, I'm going to be on my browser showing you around the website and different tournament forum posts. And before we get into that, though, I want to shout out, as usual, that I live stream every single day over at twitch.tv/DigitalHypno. That will be linked in the description, but if you want to hang out with me or ask me a question, or maybe watch me play this game live, anything like that, I would highly suggest stopping by, saying hello, and bonus points if you tell me that you came from this Let's Play series. I'll be very, very happy to see you guys there. So yes, let's get started. So welcome to the homepage of the OSU website. So before I show you where to actually go to find tournaments, I want to show you some other page that I don't exactly understand. I think it's kind of misleading. I'm not really sure why it's designed this way, but if you go to the tournament tab here under community, this is, well, it's not actually where you're supposed to go to find tournaments. This is the World Cup listing. It shows the official staff-hosted OSU World Cups of the different game modes. And I think in the future, they're going to incorporate other tournaments into this page, but for the vast majority of actual tournaments, that especially those that appeal to lower rank ranges and more casual players, more casual tournaments rather, those are going to be found on the forums. So you go to the community tab and then forum, and then there's this sub forum called tournaments. This is where you're actually supposed to go. Okay, so this is the actual page to find tournaments, and so you can see most of the titles are structured somewhat similarly. So you have the game mode, which usually people write STD, which is short for standard, and OSU standard rather. Although you can also sometimes find other game mode names, like OSU Catch, OSU Mania, things like that. And then obviously the name of the tournament, the rank range. You might see BWS on some of them. I'll explain that later in the video. And you have the format, so 2v2, maybe 1v1, 3v3, random. There could be some unique formats as well out there, but for the most part, it's pretty standardized, I feel like, stuff like that. And then you might also find something like the status that the tournament is in, the rank or registration open, or maybe it'll say the round that the tournament is in. It's pretty uncommon, I think, for the host to keep updating the title every time a new stage has started, but that is something that you might see. So you can click on one of them. Let's see, actually, okay, so let me actually take you to a forum post that is from a couple of years ago, but I think is very well structured and has a lot of detail as to the typical rule sets that you might see in tournaments. So let me take you to this forum post. This is Yaz's Summer Cup 2019, hosted by Yaze, very awesome tournament staff member, host, referee, incredible, good at TFT. But anyway, so typically the top of the forum post will have banner, obviously some sort of graphic, and then you have these dividers, as I call them, or headers. They're kind of supposed to be dividing the forum posts. A little welcome thingy, and then you have a bunch of information. Okay, so basically, so let me try to go through this one by one. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna try to be as thorough as possible with the rule set in this video. So it just shows, so the top of the forum post, ideally, and keep in mind, this is a very ideal forum post. Like, this forum post is very good, but it shows the general format. So this is the multiplayer like settings that are going to be used. So head-to-head, ScoreV2. Typically, you see ScoreV2. This is, like I mentioned in the last episode, more or less a default. And so this tournament, for example, so this tournament had no rank range, but instead it used what's called BWS to take the top seeded players, and those would move on to, I think this tournament had qualifiers. I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to check. Oh, yeah, qualifiers. But anyway, so actually this is kind of not as common these days. I think for the most part, tournaments just take like all the players that sign up and they all play qualifiers these days. But anyway, yes. Okay, so this is a unique thing for this tournament series. I think Yaz's Summer Cup is a pretty established tournament series, and so something they do is if so the top 4 players of the previous iteration automatically qualify, so they don't have to play the qualifiers. But anyway, it clarifies again, this is a no rank limit tournament, and this is pretty much actually repeating what was mentioned earlier. But it's just a disclaimer, by the way. So it is a no rank limit. So basically, the top of the top are allowed to compete, but also technically the lowest rank players in the game could also sign up. So this is a disclaimer that you should be able to play at least 5 stars. Although to be fair, the rank cutoff here was probably going to cut off most people under like mid 4 digits, probably, or maybe even like in the 3-digit rank range. But anyway, it's just some basic. Okay, so if you are the host of a tournament, typically, or like a staff member, anyone who has influence over the results of a match, then you are not allowed to play in the tournament. And this is particularly true in tournaments that are, I guess, officially recognized, and that is usually defined as having a profile badge as the winning prize for the tournament. But I'll get into badges as well later on in the video. But it's just a sort of, this is all very, I think, standard procedure when it comes to tournaments. So obviously this is such a sort of catch all, like, don't be stupid in your matches and, you know, be nice to people. Okay, so this is very important. This is very, very common for tournaments. So how tournaments work is it is 1 stage per weekend. So matches are typically played on weekends, and the list of maps that okay, so it says here schedules and map pools will be released on the Monday/Tuesday before that stage is due to happen. So what that means is, let's say you have a match this Saturday, or yeah, let's say you have a match this Saturday, then the schedules of like when your match is going to be played will be released the previous Monday, so like 5-6 days before, and also the map pool, which is the list of maps that are played in your match. So during a match, you cannot just pick whatever map you want. You have to pick from a specific list of maps that are given out for the tournament, for your specific tournament. And it's typically 1 unique map pool per round or per stage of the tournament. And then it will, like, each map pool will gradually increase in difficulty as we get later and later into like semifinals and finals and grand finals, so harder and harder map pools. So yes, usually there's a sort of cutoff for when reschedules should be submitted. So if you get your schedules for when you're going to play your 1v1, in this case, this tournament is 1v1, for when you're going to play your match against, you know, your opponent, and you're like, oh, I can't make it that time, or something like that, you would message your opponent, typically on Discord. Yeah. So tournaments, I think it's pretty much required to join the Discord server for tournaments, and you so you can like DM your opponent or maybe ping them in the tournament Discord server, and you can ask for a reschedule. And then if they're okay, you decide on a new time, and then you post a screenshot of that and put it in the reschedules text channel in the tournament server. So yes, hopefully that's clear. But typically they so a lot of tournaments like to have a cutoff as to when you can submit your schedule, just to make sure that the tournament staff has enough time to make sure you have a referee for your match and things like that. Maybe if they're going to stream the match, I want to make sure that the staff side of things have their schedules lined up as well. So yes, that is that. So also typically, okay, so yes, so this tournament forum post has the links under the information, although usually you might sometimes find them at the very, very top. But it's the Discord and the spreadsheet, which I'm actually going to open in a new tab. I'll show you guys the map pools. Pretty sure this, yeah. So I'll just show you right now. This is what the sheet looks like. Typically, tournaments have a spreadsheet like this. And oh wait, I actually forgot. I forgot. I got top 3 in this tournament. I just clicked on this tab. I was like, why is my name there? Anyway, so this is the schedule. Let me go back to an earlier tab that has more things. So you can see this is the time and date. And then if I scroll over more, okay, you can't see it. Actually, it's getting cut off. But this is basically the most of it. What's getting cut off is the referee's name of whatever your referee is going to be for that match. But this is generally, okay, so let me explain how schedules work. So the time here, so as you guys probably know, and you can tell by the flags here. So people are from all over the world playing this game, and they are all in different time zones. So the schedule, so the time of the schedule that's written like in the tournament like sheet basically is written in the universal time zone called UTC. I don't, is it like Universal Time Coordinated or something like that? But basically, it is the time zone that all other time zones are like written in reference to. So let me see if I can zoom in and show you guys this. So for example, so next to each player, you have UTC +1, -7, -4, +2. All those numbers are basically that player's time zone written in reference to the like main the UTC time, the official sort of time zone. So me, for example, so I'll use myself for example. So I live on the east coast of the United States. So my time zone written here is UTC -4. So, and my match time was written as 1830. So it's also written in 24-hour time. So let's say, okay, so this match was at 1830. So that is 6:30 p.m. also. So go back 4 hours from 6:30 p.m. and that is 2:30 p.m. So for me, this match was on Monday, August 5th at 2:30 p.m. my time, also known as 1830 ETC. So whenever you're talking to other players when scheduling things, you typically want to talk in UTC. Basically, UTC is the tournament like time zone, basically. Okay, so one thing I also want to mention. So when the time, for example, is 4, like a very early hour in the next day. Okay, so this person, for example, oh my god, Dada playing at 1 a.m. Are you kidding me? So Dada is UTC -3, and his match was at 4 UTC on Sunday. It says. So keep in mind that especially if you're in a minus time zone, Sunday 4 a.m. UTC, and then you go back 3 hours, that is 1 a.m. on Sunday. That is actually Saturday night. It is not Sunday. It's not Sunday night. It's not anything like that. It is Saturday night for Dada, and so his opponent Yang is UTC +9 from South Korea, and so for him that would be 1 p.m. right, 1 p.m. His time. So keep in mind, also with that in mind, also you might get, okay, so one very important thing to note is that you might, oh, okay, yeah, so here, for example, okay, so okay, so the time zone says UTC -7, although there's a Chinese flag here, but okay, actually, it's probably a bad example. Basically, I think start was like in the United States at this time, and that's why his time zone was wrong. Okay, this is a better example. So UTC +9.5, which is some Australian time zone, and then UTC -5 is obviously United States time zone. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that people from very far away places will need to accommodate and probably have very flexible schedules in order to find a time that works for both of them. And that's usually why tournaments aren't played all in one weekend or like only 2 weekends, because it is very hard to find times for like everyone, basically, people from all over the world. Usually if it's like a local tournament or like only for one part of the world, then usually you can fit it in 1 week. But it's very, very rare typically. And this is the reason why tournaments are like 1 stage per weekend in OSU compared to other games. I think it's usually a little different, but yes, okay, hopefully that makes sense. And if you want to find your time zone in UTC so that you can read your schedules properly, you just Google it, just like your city name or your country name if your country is pretty small. Some countries have more than 1 time zone. Like me, for example, I was UTC -4 here, and then Fiery here is UTC -7. Okay, so one other thing that I want to mention is daylight savings. Okay, this is very important actually, now that I think about it. Daylight savings. So most countries go through daylight savings, and that changes your like basically your formula for your time zone relative to UTC. So 1830 UTC for me, I mentioned earlier, would be 2 p.m. But when in daylight, okay, so this is during daylight savings. So when we're not in daylight savings, then my time zone actually becomes UTC -5, and 1830 UTC would actually be 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. So keep that in mind. Make sure you know when daylight savings is happening for you, especially if you're in the middle of a tournament, because typically daylight savings rolls over on like Sunday, I'm pretty sure, or like between Saturday and Sunday, I'm pretty sure. So that is like right in the middle of a tournament stage. So you want to make sure you know when daylight savings is happening. And typically, if your tournament is I guess, well hosted, then they will announce like a reminder, like, hey, daylight savings is happening. And okay, something else. This is not even related to OSU. I don't understand why. Like, I think American daylight savings happens like 2 weeks apart from European daylight savings. I think most Asian countries don't do daylight savings, but Europe and and the Americas, all I'm pretty sure do daylight savings, or at least North America does. But yes, anyway, that is schedules. I think schedules are probably the most important thing to understand about the universal time zone UTC. So hopefully that all makes sense. And then let me also show you the map pools. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so I think they're all hidden. You see, okay, so I'm using my scroll wheel, by the way, down at the bottom of the web page. This is how you can navigate through the different spreadsheets of the whole tournament spreadsheet. But this is the list of maps. So they basically have an ID here referring to, okay, so let me move this a little bit so you guys can see. Okay, so this is the nomad pool. This is this is a very, very typically structured map pool size. So you have 6 nomad maps, 3 hidden, 3 hard rock, 4 double time, and 3 free mods, and then 1 tiebreaker. So yes, usually you refer, so like when you're picking maps, okay, so also map pools are typically, so I'll do an entire episode on map pools, but basically they're usually structured so that there's like a certain kind of map in each map pool slot. But yes, that is more for another episode. Just wanted to show you guys. Typically, when you're in a match, you can call a map by name, but keep in mind that the referee is not going to know the map pool like you do, hopefully. So you typically call them by the ID, which is like nomad 1, nomad 2, etc. And then the referee can easily find that map on the spreadsheet. That's usually why these IDs exist the way that they do. And yes, hopefully that makes sense. That is, I think, the majority, schedules and map pools I think are very important to understand. Okay, so with that, if we keep scrolling, these are actual match rules. So at the start of your match, okay, so I think matches are like 3 different stages. So there's pre-match, which is where it says here players will roll once. So in a multiplayer chat, if you type !roll, then you can roll a random number from 1 to 100 through the actual server, through BanterBot. And whoever rolls highest, okay, so usually, okay, so this has a sort of history to it, but basically these days, the winner of the roll gets to choose either first pick, where you get to pick the first map of the match, or first ban, where you get to ban a map from the map pool. And I shouldn't have closed the tab actually, but yeah, so there's rolling where you get to decide the order of how strategy like picks and bans happen. So let's say I won the roll, so I choose to go second. So I want to pick second, for example. And that is actually, so personally, I feel like second pick is actually the more strategically viable option. Like if you have the option, you should always pick second pick. And I'll talk about that more in another video, but a future episode. But yeah, so then so let's say I chose the pick order and I want to pick second, and my opponent gets to choose the ban order, and let's say they choose to ban second. So yeah, so it says the loser of the roll selects from the remaining options. So that is what that means. So if I choose second pick, then obviously my opponent will be forced to have first pick, and vice versa. And okay, so then so the stages of a tournament match. So you roll and then you choose the order, and then there's also usually warm-ups. So each player or each team gets to pick one map for as a sort of warm-up to ease yourself into the match. Maybe change your settings if you need to, or sort of get adapted to the multiplayer environment. And then after that, I'm pretty sure warm-ups typically happen first before you actually roll for the match. And then you do your rolls, you tell the referee which order you want, and then after that, you get into banning. So you would open the map pool and you would be like, okay, I don't want to play Nomad 1. I hate Nomad 1. So whenever the referee is like, okay, it's your turn to ban, and then I would just type NM1 in the chat. That is usually good to go. I think typically I type NM1 ban, something like that. I used to like copy the entire name of the song and paste it in the chat, but I don't really do that anymore. I think because like this whole like NM1, NM2 like ID thing wasn't really a thing back then. But yeah, anyway, um, that is how I would personally do it. Just type the ID of whatever map I'm trying to refer to. And then, okay, so typically tournaments have 2 bans per player, although sometimes there's only 1. But basically, if like whatever map I ban, my opponent is not allowed to pick that, or like neither of us are allowed to pick that. The map is basically not in the map pool at all anymore. You're taking it out completely. And I think okay, so some gimmick tournaments have like different rules for. I think there's like a tournament where you can like protect a map instead of banning. But there's a lot of like intricate. I won't get into all of them, but basically, yes, you ban. Each player bans 2 maps, and then from there you take turns picking based on the pick order, obviously. So whoever has first pick, they're gonna pick one of the remaining maps, and it has to be from this map pool. And okay, so let me also mention. Okay, so free mod, since I'm thinking about it now, so you are forced to use whatever mod is like that mod pool is. So if you pick a hidden map, then both players have to use hidden. You can't like, oh, it's like hard rock, for example. It is always hard rock only. You can't toggle hidden on top of it. This both players, or like all players, if it's a team tournament, they all have to use hard rock. The only exception for like you actually getting to choose is called free mod. So in the free mod pool, so in 1v1s, you're forced to use either hidden or hard rock, or both of them, hidden hard rock. And in tournaments, I think typically in team tournaments, at least half of the players need to use a mod, and then the rest of the players can use no mod if they choose to, or they can also take a mod if they want. But yeah, that is how free mod works usually. Players are also sometimes allowed to take easy, and this tournament, for example, does so it multiplies the easy scores by 2. Because actually, let me go back over to my game. So easy mod, oh banger. So easy mod cuts your score in half, but typically on very hard maps, it is actually more, sometimes even more challenging, or just as challenging as using either hidden or hard rock. So, also fun fact, you can't have easy and hard rock chosen at the same time. If you try turning one on, it'll automatically turn off the other. But anyway, yeah, and also even if you have score v2 on, then easy gets cut in half. So okay, so let me go back to my browser. So what easy scores will be multiplied into, what that means is that it's effectively 1x multiplier, and it counts as a mod as well. Okay, yeah, here. So in a free mod pick, both players must choose a mod or a combination of these mods. So you could use hidden hard rock, you could even use hidden easy if you want, or easy hidden. I don't think anyone really ever does that in tournaments. People rarely even go easy to begin with. So yes, anyway, okay. So one other, I think, very important rule to understand is best ofs. So, and this is probably the last thing I'll cover. So best of 9 means that the maximum amount of maps you will play is 9. So for example, okay, so each time you win a map, so whoever gets the highest score on that map, you will get 1 point. And then, so if the match was very, very close and you played 9 maps, then the score line would be 5-4. So if I won 5 maps, then automatically the opponent has no chance of winning because there are not enough maps in the match in a best of 9. So best of 9 is another way of saying first to 5 points. So if the score line, or if the score is 4-4 in a best of 9, then instead of the next person getting to pick, it says here, if there's a tie, the tiebreaker will be played to determine the winner of that match. So if you go back to the spreadsheet, tiebreaker is chosen if both teams are 1 point away from winning. That is so that one player doesn't just like pick another map from the map pool to decide the match. So typically it's a longer map. Actually, this tournament was like somewhat of an exception in tiebreaker length. Typically it's at least 5 minutes, but if the map is very like dense in difficulty, then I think a shorter map works okay. But usually it tries to test a little bit of each skill. So some sort of consistency test, maybe like a skill cap test. It's got like attack, speed, streams, aim, like I don't know, random stuff. But I think for the most part, especially in like lower difficulty, I think aim is the more prevalent skill that you'll see tested in tiebreakers. It's somewhat supposed to be a consistency test. Although you don't want it to be all one skill set as well, because that is not very representative of like the entire map pool was sort of like, okay, so basically if the entire map pool is like a whole bunch of different skills, the 2 players are tied up, then you don't want the match to be like decided by one random map that was like biased towards a specific skill. So that's why typically you want the tiebreaker to be balanced across, or like have multiple different skills tested in the same map. Oh, and also tiebreaker is optional free mod typically. So if you really prefer playing with hidden, for example, then you are allowed to take hidden on the tiebreaker, but you are never required to take a mod on the tiebreaker. So yes, that is that. So schedule. So this is obviously the dates for the tournament, the different stages, and is one weekend per stage. And it is, you also typically find the best ofs written in the schedule. Although I think it's also sometimes in the information page. But anyway, okay. So prizes. Sometimes there's like, so this tournament had an actual cash prize, but a lot of tournaments, especially these days, if there's a profile badge, then there's typically only a profile badge as prize. Okay, actually, okay, maybe that's not true. Typically, you might find like supporter, like OSU supporter as a prize, or maybe the tournament is sponsored. There was a tournament recently, the United States Cup, that was sponsored by HyperX, and that tournament gave like, I think, keyboards or like mouses to the top 2 teams. And but yeah, basically profile badge. So pending means that the tournament has sent a request for their tournament to get badged to like official OSU staff. So they send the forum post and they're like, hey, I want to get a profile badge prize for my tournament. And the OSU staff will be like, okay, if your tournament runs smoothly with no hiccups, then we will give you a profile badge. And yeah, that is how that works. So then the winning player, and let me go to a sample profile. So this is what a profile badge looks like. It's different from a profile banner. So think like something like this, for example, except actually designed for the tournament. It'll say like your name and like first place and the name of the tournament usually, but that is a banner, different from a badge. This is a profile badge. It's actually on your profile officially. And yes, that is that. So then also typically at the bottom, there's just the staff listing. Very cool. These people are all awesome. Thank you for your, I guess, service in the world of volunteer staffing for OSU tournaments. But yes, let's see. Okay, so I want to also mention, so I want to mention badges a little more. So when you win a officially recognized tournament that has not gone through any hiccups, then you get a profile badge on your profile. And let's see. So I want to also mention, so what I mentioned earlier about BWS. Yeah, so this basically, and this is also on this tournament, tournament rules, I think, yeah, BWS. So what it is, so let me take you to the first forum post that ever used BWS. And you can pause the screen to read it, but I'll just describe it briefly now. So badge weighted seating is what it stands for. And basically, in old tournament days, you had to use the single player rank, your solo rank, to decide what like rank range you would be in. But basically, like no matter how good you were in a tournament, your solo rank would never get affected by that. And so what we started doing as a sort of tournament community is we would artificially inflate your solo rank based on how many profile badges you had. Only from actually winning tournaments. Like there's some other badges that exist, like mapping. Like this one's for contributing as a beatmap nominator, stuff like that. Those don't count. Only ones that you have won from a tournament. Those count towards your BWS, and it just inflates your rank. The whole point is to kick you out of rank ranges at a certain point. It's not really supposed to be very accurate. It's also not supposed to reflect your single player ability, as it is written right here. Is a tournament-minded seeding method. And so that's why, especially in tournaments with a rank range, you'll see, so 1K to 10K, which is basically all 4 digits, BWS. So even if my solo rank was 1000 or 2000, if I have enough badges that my what's called BWS rank is pushed out of the 4-digit range, then I would not be able to sign up for that tournament. That is what that means. If you don't have any badges, then it doesn't matter to you. If you have no badges and you're in this rank range, then your what's called BWS rank is the same as your single player rank. So yes, hopefully that makes sense. That's what BWS is. And that is, I think, pretty much it. The general or rule set. Make sure you join the Discord server for the tournament that you're in. Also join my Discord server where you can keep in the know with my content. Join my Discord server. But that is pretty much going to do it for this video. In future videos, I want to talk about map pool structure, things like that. Pick and ban strategies, I think, are also pretty viable topics. But let me know what you guys want to see in the comments. If you have any specific tournament related questions that you think warrant a sort of an episode of their own. No gameplay in this episode because I mostly wanted to show you guys the forums, but in future episodes I will be playing while I talk as usual, as you guys are probably used to me stumbling on my words. But anyway, this forum post, if you guys want to look at it yourself, will be linked in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this episode. If you're watching in the future, I'm sure I've made many new videos you can check out on my channel. And obviously subscribe for more. I upload these every single day. And as I mentioned earlier, stop by my Twitch stream. I don't say it for nothing. I really appreciate you guys stopping by, saying hello to my Twitch streams. But yeah, with that, we'll see you guys next time.